So you've probably already Googled it. You pulled up Zillow, maybe Redfin, typed in your address, and poof, a number appeared, right? And honestly, that number may be 10, 20, maybe even up to $50,000 off, and you have really no idea. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how real estate agents like myself determine what a home is worth, the actual method, step by step. And by the end, you'll understand that two homes, same floor plan, same exact street, could sell widely different than home prices. Hi, my name is Matthew Soto with STASH Realty Group here in Wylie, Texas, and I work with homeowners all over Wylie, Saxe, Murphy, Collin County, really the DFW Metroplex. And this is probably the most useful video that I'm going to make all year. So let's just get into it. Let's start with the elephant in the room, the Zillow's estimates, right? Or maybe Redfin's estimates, maybe Realtor.com's tool that they have, Homes.com, right? All these online portals. What they offer you is what's called a automated valuation model, AVMs, and they work by pulling public records, tax data, maybe just some recent sales prices in your general area, and then just running through an algorithm. And here's what's crazy. If you Google this, there's actually one of these companies who was running a contest years ago for like $1 million if the winner could perfect or better the algorithm that they're using. And so I don't think anybody really ever won because I mean, let's face it, algorithms are good for some things, but not when you're needing to trust somebody to sell your house, right? So here's what these automated systems can't see. They don't know whether your kitchen was updated 2 months ago. Maybe you added new floorings, you put it on a new roof 2 years ago, right? Because they don't know this type of information. They also don't account for hyper local factors, right? In a neighborhood like maybe Bozeman Farms or Inspiration here in Wylie, the difference between back in a green belt, that's locked in where you're not going to have any neighbors behind you, maybe an interior lot, some of those differentiated factors could determine maybe 10, $20,000 difference. And really, an algorithm that's just pulling public records isn't going to know what's what. And so here's some things that, these online tools get wrong most often, right? They average your home with every home in just the zip code, not just the neighborhood, like we're going to dive here in a little bit on, but regardless of the conditions or the upgrades, right? They lag behind the market. And so if prices in your subdivision have shifted like within the last 90 days, they may not reflect it because they're just way behind. And they can't really distinguish what's, between a flipped home, with premium finishes or the 2008 build that has just the builder finishes. And so this is why a lot of AVMs, they can get the conversation started and give you a rough estimate, but really you're going to need a professional like myself to really dive into it. So what's the right tool to use? Well, we call that a comparative market analysis. It's a CMA, right? And I'm going to show you exactly how it works, all right? So a comparative market analysis, a CMA, is how agents and some appraisers determine what your home is worth in today's market, right? Not last year, not maybe 6 or 10 months ago, because like I mentioned, those AVMs sometimes are behind, right? It's a structured process using real verifiable data for homes that have actually sold, right? The core idea is kind of simple. It's your home is worth what really a buyer is willing to pay for it in today's market. And they do this by hiring agents like ourselves to see what homes have sold for, right? But once again, a true market value is what a buyer is willing to pay for it. But here's what kind of separates a good CMA from a bad one. Now, the quality of the comps that you choose and how precisely you adjust for the differences between, those homes and yours, that's really where the professionalism, the experience comes in when you're using an agent like myself, right? So think about it. A CMA component, so like recent sold comps within 90 days, that really tells us what buyers have actually paid for similar homes. We also look at active listings because these are what you're going to be competing against, right? We got to see what the competition looks like and what those features are and how we can strategically position your home to outbid and outwin those, right? When it comes to bringing the buyers to your house. pending sales, where the market is maybe headed in real time. Then we also look at expired listings, what price the market rejected, key ceiling data, because if homes expire, that means they weren't sold. And that could be for numerous reasons, right? But we're not going to get into that specifics right now. And then we got to look at days on market, right? Days on market trends. How quickly priced right homes, because like if you saw my other videos, we talk about aspirational market pricing, we talk about market pricing, and then we're a little bit below market pricing. So how quickly have priced homes are moving? That's going to differentiate a lot, because there are some people with aspirational, motivations and pricing that just sit on the market for 6, 8 months, years, right? And that's just because they aren't priced for the market. Here's 5 factors that really drive value in Wylie, or you can consider in your neighborhood. Okay. So what are agents actually looking at when they're pricing a home in this area? Let me give you those 5 factors right now. Location within the subdivision. Like I mentioned earlier, in Wylie, not all lots are equal. Even within the same neighborhood, backing to a green belt, a pond, or open space, it adds real value. Being on a corner lot sometimes adds value for some buyers, but then some buyers may subtract that value because they may not want a corner lot, but they love the house. Fronting a busy, collector road like maybe Saxey Road or Brown Street, maybe if you're backing that up, that could bring the value down. So when we run comps, we filter for a lot position wherever possible. Number 2 is square footage in the floor plan. Square footage matters, but the floor plan matters a little bit more, because you can have a 2-story home that's like 2,500 square feet, and then you have a 1-story home that's the same, and it's because the floor plans are different, right? And a floor plan, I don't know about you, but I'm in my 40s. I don't really want to walk upstairs anymore. So a 2-story home isn't as appealing, and I may subtract value in my mind for that home versus a 1-story flat with the same amount of square footage, because that floor plan flows better for my family, our needs, and really my age, right? So we got to take in consideration the square footage, but also the floor plan. Now, factor number 3 is really condition and finishes. Like I mentioned before, right? A lot of times, if you're renovating your home just to put it on the market, it may not make sense on certain finishes or renovations, because you're not going to get your return on investment back. A lot of times I tell my clients, like, hey, you want to renovate your home to enjoy it, because you're going to be there 17 years before you sell it. So you want to enjoy those things. And when it comes time to sell the house, guess what? It's already updated, possibly better than the competition. And so a lot of buyers are going to be more appealing to that home. So the condition and finishes is one of the factors. Age of major systems, right? This is a hit and miss, because a lot of times you can't buy a house that has, well, you can, but nobody's going to really enjoy it if your HVAC isn't working, right? Or the electrical, the plumbing, the roof. A lot of these major systems, guess what? These are major components of a house that needs to happen regardless. But a lot of people think, well, my home has a new roof. Yes, it does have a new roof, and that is a buying feature for a buyer to be more attracted than the local competition around the corner, because it's new, but it's necessary to have a roof, right? You can't sell the house without the roof and expect somebody to pay premium price. And so a lot of times these major components do play a little bit in the value, but more of appealing to a buyer. Then we got to look at, guess what? Current supply and demand, right? Where homes are, how many homes are you competing against that have similar features or qualities and things like that. So we got to look at the current supply and demand balance. Now, your subdivision matters more than your zip code. So when we're running a CMA, we really truly start 90 days from today when we're running it. But instead of looking at the zip code, because we all know those are just averages, we look at your subdivision, right? We go within about a quarter mile. And sometimes that could be leading into 2 or 3 different subdivisions. So then we map it out just to your subdivision specifically. So think about it. Bozeman Farm Estates and Inspiration, they're newer. They have amenity-rich communities that attract premium prices. Kramer Estates, Lake Ranch Estates offer strong value, but at a different price point. Homes that are near Wylie East, School, they are going to differentiate between homes that are just in Wylie High, right? So a lot of these things determine, and this is why we really focus on your subdivision. This is why a citywide or a zip code average is almost meaningless when you're pricing your specific home. It's good to get that rough estimate, but not when you're already having true conversations of putting your house on the market for sale. So a good CMA doesn't start with a zip code. It starts with your subdivision, then your street, then homes that most closely match yours in size, in condition, and then that's when we go in and subtract and add different variables depending on your finishes and the condition that it's in. So what does this actually mean? Never benchmark your home against one in a different subdivision, especially now. Let me correct myself. If you're in a rural area where you have acres, then yes, you have to go further out to compare, right? Because there's not that many homes in your subdivision because there may be like five. And so then we expand the search, but we start always within your subdivision. If we're not finding a lot of data, we'll sometimes go past 90 days, maybe 180 days, and then make adjustments from there. Or we will broaden to the next subdivision that has homes that look like yours, that same floor plans or similar, and the same features and stuff. But just keep that into consideration. Now, a real CMA walkthrough, and what does that look like? Well, I'm going to kind of show you here. This is what it actually looks like in practice. Now, I can't truly show you because for privacy reasons, I can't display people's addresses. But what you can tell from, this graphic here that I'm going to display is, here's some in Woodbridge where we're getting ready to list a property actually, and the home is a little bit over 2,500 square feet. So what you can see here is we go within that same subdivision in that same little part of that subdivision, because let's face it, Woodbridge is huge in Wylie. And so right now there's a home for sale at 2,753 square feet, 4 bed, 4 bath for 425,000. But if you look at maybe one that's sold, it's 2,400 square feet, 3 bed, 2 bath for 467,500. So how could a home smaller sell more than one that's actually listed and that's listed for less? That goes back to, okay, where do these two homes back? Is one back in the golf course? Is one backing a green belt? Is the finishes on the 2,400 better than the one on the 27? So a lot of this we have to look at when we're doing your CMA to give you a range of what we think our professional opinion is that your home will sell for, right? So let's just say we need more data, right? Because this is just some of the properties just right within the neighborhood that they're in. So then we pull maybe go a little bit more wider out and map it out a little bit further. Now, here we go. Look at all these homes. Now, there's more competition, but there's also more homes that have sold. So let's look at the competition first, right? These are our actives. If we're at 2,500 square feet and there's a 3,000 square foot home for sale for 423, what is going to attract buyers to our listing that we're getting ready to put on versus the one that's 500 square foot more? So as a seller, you may be thinking, well, yes, my home has better features. And yes, that's going to come into consideration and play more value add into it. But then again, it's like that's 500 square foot more. So what if a buyer doesn't like the finishes that you have and they're willing to go and buy this 3,000 square foot home for, let's just say, $20,000 less, because then they can make their own finishes and make it their own, right? So all these things come into play when we're determining it, but we got to look at the competition because we got to make sure we position your house to be better and attract more buyers and more offers for you than the local competition, right? And then this goes to active option, right? That means that there's a contract on it. They're probably doing their due diligence period and inspections. Pending, they're a little bit further out, but we look at pendings as well and closed. Like I mentioned, we do look at expires, but for this example, we're not looking at them right now because there's enough data on the closed side that we can come up with a broad range and compare it to what the competition looks like, right? And so we look at, let's just say, a home that sold maybe 45 days ago. It's 2,380 square feet with updated kitchens, baths. And let's just say, for example, it sold for 415,000. It has slightly up superior finishes, but then we adjust down to maybe 408 on that, right? Then let's just say comp B. We're going to call first one comp A, this one comp B. It sold in 30 days. It's 2450 square feet, original finishes throughout, and it sold for 388. It's larger but dated. So then we need to adjust the price and different values, and maybe we adjust that one to say 396. Then we have comp C, the third comp, right? It sold in 60 days, 2410 square feet, updated kitchen, backs a green belt. It sold for 422 because it has a premium lot, and we're going to adjust that to maybe 405. So averaging our adjusted comps gives us a range between 396 and 408. So given that the new roof, a real value add for buyers, that they noticed that, and current low inventory in the subdivision, we landed on maybe a list price recommendation of 405 to 410. And so that's how we kind of determine what a CMA looks like. And when we meet, or you just want to know the value, is how we do a CMA that you can utilize for not only tax purposes, right, to protest your tax, but to really dive deep into the consideration: is it the time to sell? Now that I mentioned it, is it the time to sell? Is how does timing affect your number? One thing that doesn't show up in any algorithm is the time of the year that your home hits the market. And in Wylie specifically, I see a consistent seasonal pattern, and even more subdivisions in cities as well. So February through May is really the strongest sellers window. School year buyers are motivated, right? They're relocating families. They wanted to get into a better school district before August. And sometimes inventory is typically at its lowest point of the year, which means less competition for your home and more competition amongst buyers. But historically, homes listed in this window in Collin County, it sells faster and maybe even closes at or even above the list price. Now, in our professional opinion, summer softens slightly as families shift into vacation mode. They're not worried about buying a house. They want to go enjoy summer with the kids, with the family, go to all kinds of vacations, and they're sometimes gone weeks. And so a lot of times the market softens during that. And then we have the comeback serious buyers that come in maybe between September and October. Winter depends. Sometimes it could be slow, and sometimes it can really be, a hot market, as we've seen in our business, where a lot of times our Q1 and Q4s are our busiest times, even throughout the holidays. And what I tell my sellers all the time when they say, "Hey, well, we're getting near Christmas, should I list my house for sale?" Well, guess what? The buyers that are shopping during these times, they're probably more serious than all the other buyers out there that are just looking, waiting around. So, yes, it's still a good time. Now, it also has to make sense for you, your needs, and your wants of when we hit the market. And these are things that we discussed during our listing presentation with you in listing consultation, because it really depends. What if your job relocates you and you got to be there within 30 days? Well, then yes, we got to hit the market at that time and get it going so that way you're not wasting any time. So timing does matter. And like I mentioned, there's no algorithms out there that are going to account for those things because it's what your needs are. What to do maybe when you disagree with the price. Well, I want to address something real, right? Because this comes up in almost every listing conversation that I have. What happens when a CMA comes back lower than you expected or lower than what you feel your home is worth? Well, first, your feelings about your home are completely valid, right? Your family grew up there for 20 years, 10 years, your kids are now older. You lived there and you've made it yours. You've invested real money into updating it the way you wanted. So that emotional value is real, but buyers don't share that same context, and the market doesn't price for sentiment. And that's just the honest truth, right? So when numbers surprise you, the best thing to do is to ask the agent to walk you through the comps, walk you through the verifiable data, like I just mentioned a little while ago, not just give you a number. They need to show you the data. Which home sold? What did they look like compared to yours? And if a home that's maybe genuinely inferior to yours sold for less, that's not a ceiling, it's a floor. If a home that's clearly superior, that's sold for more, that's your target. That's what we look for, and that's what we got to compare yours to. So if you look at the data and genuinely believe there's a comp that was missed or that specific upgrade wasn't accounted for, well, then just say so, right? A good agent welcomes that conversation. What you don't want to do is price above the data and just hope and dream that you're going to hit that. That's what I mentioned. That's what we call aspirational pricing, right? That strategy costs you time, and time on the market is the most expensive thing in real estate. And here's why. The longer a home sits on the market, what do you think buyers are doing? They're saying, well, it's overpriced. I'm not willing to pay for that. I'm going to wait until they reduce the price. Then here comes price reduction number one. Then it sits on the market for another 30 days and you're not getting the offers you think it is. And that's because maybe the agents allowed you to keep that aspirational pricing and they just wanted to put a sign in the yard. They didn't show you the data. They didn't even have any data to back up that price. They just said, yep, yes, 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 right? Just to get the listing for you from you. So what happens on that? Then here comes another price reduction. So buyers are just going to wait until they see that you stopped reducing the price, and then they're going to get serious about going to look at your home, right? So days on market, like I mentioned, that costs you time, and time on market is the most expensive thing in real estate. So here's where I land. The number on Zillow, that could be a starting point because I'll be honest, they've gotten better at their algorithms, but it's still an algorithm. It's not the due diligence that we do as agents to give you that CMA. The number from a comparative market analysis built by someone like me who knows the market, who's walked the homes in these different neighborhoods that yours is in, and who's actually sold homes in that neighborhood, they know what buyers are looking for, right? They know exactly what they're paying right now, and that's the number that you can take to the bank. If you've been sitting on this question wondering what your home is worth, whether now is the right time, what you'd actually walk away with, let's have a conversation. Let's get together and have a conversation. I offer a no obligation comparative market analysis for homeowners in Wylie, Saxe, Murphy, right? Collin County, all across DFW. And so there's no automated estimate. There's no obligation. It's just a real analysis specific to your address and your subdivision, your neighborhood. The link to your request is in the description below. You can also call or text me 972-217-4948. I'm always happy to talk you through the situation first before we even get to the numbers. And if this video has helped you understand the process a little better, hit subscribe, right? I put videos out every so often specific to this market, what the selling looks like, what's not, what buyers are thinking, what buyers are buying, what they're doing, their habits and traits. So there's a link to another video on how to actually prepare your home to get top dollar right up there. Be sure to watch that and click it.